Hi,
You are now
everyone.
live.
We are live.
Hey.
Yes.
Mhm.
Welcome, everyone. We've already been having a slight conversation on the side here. So it's actually an official welcome after the second one. Welcome to Momentum Velocity Club's very first episode of the Inside Scoop series. So I'm pretty excited about today. I'm more excited about the gentleman that I'm going to be having a conversation with. So I'm not going to tell Khaya why I'm super excited to be chatting with him, because he's going to say you say that to all your guests. So I'm going to let you do it for
Probably
me.
true.
I'm going to let you guys do it for me. Tell me why you're excited to see Khaya, because you're not biased. Definitely a lot of apologies, guys, for the network issues that we were delayed in. It was a network glitch on our part, but thank you so much for holding on and hanging on to the conversation. The people who are asking, where is Khaya? He has arrived. Welcome back also to the people who are joining us from our first webinar. Please make everybody feel at home in the comment section. You know that we love hearing from you guys as we go on with the conversation. To start, for the people who are wondering, who is this Momentum Velocity Club and why the Inside Scoop? So Momentum Velocity Club is a partner with professionals, and we partner with professionals to help them achieve their success in their own lives. And although we help professionals align their money to their life goals and help them achieve their success, we realize that it's not only about the money, it's also about purpose, it's about people, and it's about experiences. And that's why we're bringing you a series of talks with some of South Africa's most influential business people to come and have conversations with us about how to steer the success and achieve it, as well as what to do in order to unlock our goals. So that's why Khaya is joining us today. So without further ado, I welcome the impeccable, multi-talented author, a writer, and the current CMO of RAIN, Khaya Dlanga. Welcome to the conversation, Khaya.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. And I just want everybody to know that I'm wearing pants. So,
Are you trying to expose me?
yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. I think it's going to be a great conversation. And guys, welcome to comment and put your questions in the comment section, and I'll make sure that I weave them into the conversation. But to start, I want us to go to the roots. So where I would normally ask, what is your background and where are you from? What I'm inclined to ask rather is, you're one of the few people that I know who constantly mention exactly where they are from. So if you know Khaya, you've probably heard Edukini a couple of times. So I want to know what has been the significance of this home village to you in your life, and how has it helped you actually shape you to become the man that you are today?
And I think, I think for me, talking about the village where I come from, it kind of came very naturally. Um, One of the occasions that I remember very vividly when it became like a thing that I did not expect, I think it was 2011, and I had visited, my village. I'd had my first car. I was driving my first car. It was pretty fancy, I think, at the time. It was a Mercedes. And so I'm visiting my village, and I get there, and because when you get a new car, you're supposed to take it, to the parents, and so that it gets the blessings from the ancestors. So that's what I was doing. And when I got there, I remembered I had all these memories, where I was looking up my grandfather's cattle. I'd take pictures and I'd say, the kraal was here, this is where I slept, this was the hut, this is where I used to look after the cattle, and I posted those pictures. And what was quite incredible was the overwhelming response, how people kept saying, oh my goodness, you're so proud of where you come from. You're making me proud of where I come from. I never used to tell people that I actually grew up in a village, and posting these pictures has made me realize that. And for me, it was never a matter of like me hiding where I was coming from. I was surprised that people felt like the need to hide where they come from, and use my village experience to come up with an ad. And I remember a chicken brand that we worked on, very famous Nando's, and I worked on this ad, and we made this ad, and I used my very experience, the fact that when I grew up in the village, we didn't have cinemas, we didn't have TVs, and we used to have this man who'd come to the village, and he would cut like a cardboard box, like a hole, and he would draw movie picture, like literally draw pictures of a movie and close off the heart. And then he would, it's almost like an acetate. I think people are too young to, some people may be too young to know what acetate tape is. And so he'd wind this up and shine a torch and shine it against the wall. And he'd narrate all the voices in the movie and tell us a movie, but it's like a Bruce Lee movie, but he's narrating it in Xhosa. And we're out there as kids. And I made this ad. And it went on to win like this and I was worried that no one would understand it, no one would relate to it because I'm talking about a village. And incredibly enough, this ad was so successful that it went on to win like what we call the Oscars of advertising, a Can Gold. And that experience made me realize that if I take where I come from, it's the one thing that's really going to make me successful. And therefore, that's why, it's so important for me to keep going back, to my roots, because my roots is the only thing that I know. The suburbs, I know about the suburbs because I used to read about them. I didn't grow up in the suburbs. So I couldn't talk to you about the experience of growing up in a suburb because I didn't grow up in one. I only started living in a suburb after I grew, after I was like an old man with a beard.
It's very interesting that you put that. Guys, I see the comments in the comment section that there's a bit of network issues. Someone has suggested that you can reconnect because that seemed to work for them. So please try that. And then also let us know if you're still struggling to hear Khaya. I can hear him clearly on my side. So I'm not sure what the problem may be. So thank you for that, for the guys who are playing our IT support in the comment section. Back to you, Kai. So it's interesting that you mentioned that your inspiration actually comes from where you come from, right? Because access is a challenge for a lot of people. Access to the right opportunities, access to resources, to exposure, to funding, and a whole lot of other stuff. So what I'd like to know is, how does an individual, a young man like yourself, who had an unemployed mother, who was single, end up at the AAA? How does that happen? And how did you bridge that gap and actually make that dream a reality?
Well, so how I ended up with the AAA, because my mother was unemployed. I'll try and tell this story as briefly as possible. It was my mother's ambition, to tell you the truth, that actually got me to, I think she was a lot more ambitious than I was for myself, so I have to give her that credit. In my mind, after I'd finished matric, I was like, there's no way I'm going to get, I'm going to get to varsity because my mom doesn't have money. So what's the point of actually studying well and doing well, because nothing's going to happen? And I lied to her and I said I've applied to go to the AAA. But what I'd done is that I'd helped a friend of mine fill his forms to go to the AAA. And our neighbor couldn't speak English. I lived in Tanzania at the time. So our neighbors they couldn't speak English. They had a phone. We didn't have a phone in the house. And also, like, if we needed to put anything in the fridge, we'd put it like next door because we didn't have a fridge either. So I remember the one day I told everybody in the neighborhood that I was going to apply to the AAA, even though it was a big fat lie. And the friend of mine who'd been accepted to the AAA, he was here and they called me and said, so when I come to the AAA, and I told, but he called the neighbors. And the neighbors heard the words, Khaya Letu, that's my name, Khaya Letu, AAA Cape Town. And there was no one at home, right? So they came back and they told my mother that I got a call from the AAA that said I'd been accepted at the AAA in Cape Town. And so my mother is excited. She's like, that is great. And so she gives me like a last $500, and I get a taxi and I end up in Cape Town. But throughout this trip, I was like, oh my goodness, I lied. There's no way I'm going to, I don't know how I'm going to get over this. So, and I'm trying to figure out a trick. What can I say to make sure that I actually finally get accepted? Eventually I get about 12 hours later from Tanzania to Cape Town in a taxi. I figure a foolproof idea. So I get to the AAA reception and I say, are you still accepting? Because 1 week already, people had already been studying. And I asked the lady at reception, are you accepting people now? And she said, hey, in Xhosa, she says, yo, I'm Danam. Even the white children here, they're coming with their parents and we tell them that like it's, you can't come here.
And if
full.
someone says even the white children, then you're really not getting it.
Exactly. She was like, even the wild children. So there's no chance, Mtanam. So you should just go back home. And then I said to her, you know what, Sis Tandy, that was her name. And I said, Sis Tandy, I applied, but I never got a rejection or an acceptance letter. And then, so Sis Tandy was like, what? And the truth is that I actually never applied in the first place. And so she's shocked, and she calls the registrar, and she tells the registrar is shocked. This has never happened before. And then she says, she invites me to her office, and she had these files, these folders. And she asked me to look to see if I can find my application form. So we go through these application forms, alphabetical order, and I was the most helpful person in the world at that moment, looking for a form I know I'd never find. I was looking and looking, and eventually she was like, and I was like, no, sorry, no, wrong form. And then eventually she was like, you know what, I will do this for you. I will give you this form, and I'll give you 3 days to apply, to fill it in. And these forms were pretty thick. They gave you 3 weeks to fill them in, but she gave me 3 days. And I was like, it's impossible. Because I filled them in for my friend. Well, I had my friend like over 3 weeks. And I looked for a place that evening, and I did not sleep a wink the entire, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I dropped it on Monday. She was shocked to see me dropping the form on Monday. And then she was like, oh, you're here. Literally, that's what she said, because she couldn't believe I was there. And then she told me to come back in 5 minutes. I came back after 5 minutes. And I was convinced she had decided that she did not want me, because there's no way you can go through this form in 5 minutes. I was like, she's already made up my mind that, I'm not going to accept it. But then I come back in 5 minutes. It says, come back in 10. I come back in 10. She's going to come back in 15. And then she says, okay, listen, I looked at this. I'm really, really impressed. And we've decided to accept you. And so how are you going to pay? Because you said your mom doesn't work. And I was like, wow, see, my mom has these cows, which she did have cows in the village.
So that was
cows
true.
And sheep. It was true. And then that's what she did. She would sell her cows and the sheep. And eventually, during my second year, she ran out of cows and sheep.
It's interesting that you say that.
That's how I ended up at the AAA.
That's how you ended up at the AAA. My question is that, I want a quick answer for this one. So you get into a taxi and you travel with no plan, with no certainty, just an eagerness to succeed. What is sustaining you at that moment? What is the one thing that is saying it's going to be okay?
I don't think anything. It was fear. I was terrified of my mother because I'd lied. So I was like, I'd better come back. I'd better tell her that I got the AAA and I was accepted. And I had to find a way to, honestly, and that is the honest truth. It was more the fear of my mother. And it was also not wasting this opportunity, because she'd given me her last money, and she'd sent me to go, and the guilt of it all, that should be wasted if I don't come back, having gone to the AAA, and after lying. And I suppose in some ways it was, for me, it was penance for myself, like, let me make up for this huge lie.
I think a lot of people are relating in the comment section, and I do too, that it's definitely understandable that the fear of a mother can definitely drive you to succeed. But I'm glad that you used it positively. So you mentioned at the end that your mom used her last money, and she used cows to put you through this expensive school so you could get the opportunity. And I think we tend to know that our parents almost have an innate ability to make a little go a very long way. And they're able to support, and you never wonder, where is this money coming from, and how come they have so much and they're able to achieve so much? And is this thing that you have learned to adopt in your own life as well? And if so, how successful have you been? Because I know our generation is not necessarily as successful in doing that.
Well, I don't have kids to worry about, so
Tick.
I think that is a different thing. So because I don't have kids, I don't have anything like that, my priorities may be a little bit different. And I suppose in many ways, I've been Well, in one way, I was successful in one way, in the sense that because my mom wasn't working, and then I had to find a way of working, I had to pay for my siblings to go to school. I had three, other siblings. So they were still in school. So I did pay for them to go through school and pay for them go uh, through tertiary as well. So in many ways, I had to make my own money stretch and delay maybe certain things that I may have wanted for myself. Like, for example, I got a car at a very, late age stage because I had to think about, everyone else was coming after me because my mom had made these sacrifices. So it was important for me to also make sacrifices for those who were coming after me.
I mentioned in the beginning as well that you're now a marketing and advertising expert. And I think the first thing I thought about when I realized that you are in marketing and you've made a career out of it is in those days, the top careers at the time and what was popularly known was becoming a nurse or a doctor or a teacher. And also, those are the people that you saw in the community who had jobs and a stable income. How did you find out about advertising? And I'm wondering, yay, corner on TV for you to actually see these adverts and say, I want to make them one day. So how did that come about?
Like we didn't have a TV, but like I had a neighbor, and I'd go and watch the news at the neighbor's house. And I was really young. My mom always talks about how I'd go and how the old lady next door would prepare a place for me because I was this young kid who was watching the news all the time. And so when I was in what was then known as Standard 8 and it's grade 10, I don't know if you can hear me. I think there's a connection. Can you hear me?
I can. We can hear you, so you can go on. The video seems to have dropped, but you can go on.
Okay, I'll go on. Okay, I'll carry on. And then so I'm getting to the school, and so we had a teacher, and this lady from the AAA. No, there was a subject called something economics. What is it? Something economics.
Business economics.
I forgot
home
what it was.
economics.
Business. Yes, business economics. So
Yes.
that's what I was doing. And there was a section there on marketing. And I was like, this thing is so interesting. This is so cool. I think I'd love to do this. And I just found it fascinating. And then we had someone who come from the AAA to come talk to the school. And they made an announcement on the intercom. And when they made this announcement that this person was coming during break, they'll be talking about advertising, anyone who's interested, I went there. And I remember there were only 8 of us in the room who went to listen to her. And I was like, okay, this is so, and she was showing these ads that were made by people who were like maybe only 3 years older than I was, and these creative ideas. And I was like, this is so cool. I want to do this. And I think I can do this thing. And that's what really got me to get into advertising. And so, but also maybe your next question would be, what did my mother say when I said that I was going to get into advertising? My mother was like, well, Mtanam, do what you think is right and what you think you can do, because, and she would call herself, she says, Andifundanga mna, which means I'm not educated, I don't know these things. So I trust you to use your gifts and maybe you'll be good at it. And then she just let me do what I wanted. In fact, I even talked about interior design, interior decorating,
Wow.
things I didn't know about,
Wow.
But and she was like, okay, fine, just do it.
So just go with what you're passionate about and do it. And this leads me to my next question, which I'm sure a lot of us are very interested in, especially because of what we wanted to talk about today. The first one is, did you consider this a risk in comparison to any other profession you would have gone into? And also just tell us about some of the other risks. I mean, I see the AAA as one risk for me, a person who's very risk averse, to just travel and hope to find a place in an academy. What are some of the other things? Take us through the other risks that you've taken along the way in order to sort of build yourself up to what you are today.
Okay. I'd say it's interesting because I think sometimes when you're taking the risk, you don't think about it as a risk. Or you're taking it because you feel like I have no other option. Or you're taking it because it's something that you passionately want to do and you really want to do. And in my case, I wanted, so when I got into, I'll give you an example about how I got my first job, because I dropped out of the AAA. I didn't have a degree. I was working as a waiter. I'd been working, I think, for about 2 years as a waiter. And at some point, I was like, there's a guy who was also a waiter who was complaining every day about how he's got an engineering degree. I remember I was 26 and going on 27, you know, a white guy, Warwick, that is his name, and I was complaining every day about how he's got a degree and doesn't have a job. And I remember one day, and I said, if I hear this guy say this one more time, I will kill myself if he complains one more time. And I was like, why isn't he looking for a job? And then I decided, I looked at myself and I said, actually, why am I not looking for another job? Because I don't want to be a waiter for the rest of my life. So I wrote a CV and I sent it to what was then the most awarded ad agency in Cape Town. And, you know, I sent my CV and I told myself two things. My CV had to show that I can do the job. Number two, it had to show that I'm creative. Number three, the job itself had to be the ad, so that people don't concentrate on what I lack. Because if they'll concentrate on the fact that I have not qualified, I did not finish, and therefore they should not even look at my CV. So I had to make them overlook that fact. So in my CV, I wrote like in bullet point forms, I lived in Cape Town. I do again. The point number one was like, I live in Pinelands, not Guguletu. Bullet point number two, I can use phones, faxes, and computers without breaking them. Bullet point number three, some of my best friends are white. Bullet point number four, I can swim when absolutely necessary. And then bullet point number five was like, I am not a member of COSATU. And then I wrote, position applying for, and I said copywriter. And then I was like, another headline, experience in this field. And then I wrote, I also write slogans on township walls like Free Mandela and one man, one vote. This was a very successful campaign, as you might have noticed. So the funniest thing was that I'll never forget getting a phone call that very day. And this woman is just laughing and laughing and laughing on the phone. And I'm thinking, who's this crazy white woman who's just laughing on the phone? And then she apologizes. She says, I'm really, really sorry. I just read your CV. It is hilarious. Please, can you come through for the interview tomorrow? And funny enough, I'd actually spoken. I was living in a digs, and I showed this CV that I wanted to send to this friend of mine who was a lawyer. And he was like, are you crazy? You can't send that. No one's going to take you seriously. And I thought, well, I mean, what have I got to lose? And then I sent it as it was, and went for an interview, and I got the job. So there was one risk that I took to be able to get into advertising. And then I'd say a second risk that I could think about.
Can I say, Khaya, before you go on? So guys, I'm reading your comments, right? And people are like, no, this is a story. What are you talking about? Lol. Please read his book. These things really do happen to him. What's the second risk?
So the second risk was that I was, I'm making ads and I've won, awards and all of that. And I was like, I knew that I didn't want to be a creative director. I knew that I didn't want to be coming up with ideas, all the time, because number one, creatives tend to have a short lifespan in South Africa in the advertising space. And I was like, I'd love to move into client space. And then the next thing I did was I started social media. I was kind of starting at the time, and I was making these YouTube videos, and where I even got to ask Barack Obama a question on YouTube. And then I was writing blogs, and all of these things. And no one knew what social media was at the time, and they didn't know what it was. And because people could see me, and then us, so F&B would call me up to talk to their marketing team about social media. And then I'd have Investec, I'd have SAB, I had these various companies asking me to talk about social media. And then I had this great talk that I'd created for myself. And then I went to ask to be a strategist. Before I asked for the strategist. So now, beginning of the year, we're getting raises. So everyone's called to the office, and my boss, he calls me and he says, listen, you're doing a good job, so you're gonna get your raise, and this is how much your raise is gonna be. And at the time, I was like, I know that I want to be a strategist. So I said to him, I don't feel that I've done great work, and I honestly didn't feel I did great work that year. And I said, I feel I would like to decline. I would like to say no thank you to the raise. And because I don't think that I should be rewarded for what I did last year, because it was not up to the standard that I think I should be able to live up to. And he was like, okay, are you sure? And I was like, yes, yes. And then obviously when I was walking to my office, I was like, I'm such an idiot. I need this money. I mean, I don't have a car. I've got family that I'm supporting.
What are
Am
you
I
thinking,
What am
Khaya?
I
What are you
thinking?
thinking?
I know. And then I was like, I'm going to stay. This is why I'm this. And I was like, this is why I'm single.
Definitely.
And so now I get to, and then he comes to my office the next day. He says, I've been in this business for 20 years. I've never heard of anybody turning down a raise, and I've never met anyone who's ever turned down a raise. So, yeah, and he said whatever, he was surprised and impressed, whatever it was. And then he said, no, he wants to give me a raise because of that. And I said, no, I said, I don't want the raise because then I won't have the resolve to be better, and then he does that. And then a few months later, I go to his office and I say, listen, I really want to be a strategist. I want to stop making ads. I want to become a strategist. But I knew that at the back of his mind, he remembers that I turned down a raise. So he'd feel guilty about not asking, about not giving me the opportunity to become a strategist.
Nicely played.
And then he said, okay, sure, fine. Become a strategist. But he'd come into my office every single day because he wanted me to carry on being a creative, and he'd say, do you hate it yet? Every single day. And I hated it, but I never admitted to him that I hated it because I knew that I had to learn to understand it and get the craft, and then, I will eventually get to enjoy it. And then, I ended up working on, here's another risk actually. When I was a very new strategist. So new strategist, and I'm doing the most mundane and boring things. So we're pitching on a big account at the time, FNB. So we're pitching on this brand, and the head strategist presents the strategy to the entire agency. Nobody understands what she's saying, literally. And like everybody they are so mad. They are so crazy. They're like, but what are you trying to say? And in the meantime, I'd been working on a separate strategy that I thought would make more sense, but also because I'd been a creative, I thought I'd be able to translate it better. And then, so I go to the founder of the agency's office and I show him the strategy, and I said, and then I suppose what I did then is that I got that, I worked on this account and we won this major account on the business. And then from then on, I was just asked to continue being a strategist. In fact, my boss the one who kept coming to my office to say to me, do you hate it yet? Do you hate it yet? Strategy. He literally came to my office, and then he said, you know what? I think you're born to do this. And then turns out that, maybe that risk did pay off. Yeah.
And I want to, on that element, I think a lot of us are motivated. Someone in the comment section, Benjamin, just asked me if I'm a risk taker, considering all the things that you've done that are really risks, and I think a bit calculated because you were investing in yourself and you had that driving you as well. So to answer the question, I'm a bit on the risk averse side, but I'm definitely taking tips from Khaya in trying to improve that, and I'm hoping that it's going to be a work in progress. So Khaya, we've listened to your interviews and we've read your books as well and engaged with you. So I thought this would be an interesting question to ask. And again, I'm inviting the audience. Guys, you seem to be enjoying the conversation, which is great. So you can hold on to your popcorn and listen in. But if you also want to ask Khaya a few questions, by all means do so. Leave the questions in the comment box and I'm going to try and weave it into the conversation. On that note, like I said, we've read your books and we've listened to your interviews. One thing I wanted to know is, what are 3 things we actually don't know about Khaya? So you're a very open book. So what are 3 things we don't know about you? And of those 3 things, I'll make it a bit easier. It could be something that we think we know, because sometimes we think we know, but we actually don't.
Wow, that is very, very, if I haven't said it, I probably don't want someone to know it.
Inside scoop. #.
That's a very good question. I'm actually not as extroverted as people think that I am. I actually, so I enjoy my time alone, like a lot, as much as I actually enjoy being with people. So I'm not, and I can balance a broom on my toe for longer than a minute.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like you cheated there a bit, but it's fine.
I,
It's fine. Um, the risk that you Okay, so I'm going to take a question from the audience now and let them have a go at getting to know you a bit more as well. What would be your advice to a person who's completely new in the marketing space? What advice would you give that person?
Okay, my advice would be try and educate yourself as much as you possibly can. And when I say educate yourself, it's not about the textbooks and all of that. And although, because I think that when you get into marketing, the moment you get into marketing, you have already, and the books that you studied at college are already outdated. Let me just tell you that right now. So, what you want to do, you want to see what people are already doing and read case studies as they are happening. But also, you've got to understand that it's about breaking the boundaries and trying to do something new and something different all the time. And if you don't try to do that and rely too much on what happened in the past, you're not going to be noticed. You'll become like a safe marketer, doing all the safe things. As you can see, the world is a very different place now. And the only brands that truly stand out are the brands that are not afraid, to do something different and something new and take chances. But you don't take risks and chances for the sake of it. You take the chances and the risk, and like I said earlier, that they have to be calculated. They have to be very well considered. And if it's you because I find that sometimes maybe some when as a creative, I'd want to take a risk for the sake of taking it because, well, this client is stupid. Why are they taking the risk? But they haven't thought the business through. They haven't thought about the entire process through. And I think as a marketeer, as someone's in marketing, you've got to really understand the business that you're working on. It's not just the marketing aspect. And I think the best marketers are those people who really have an understanding of the entire value chain of the business. So, and I'm also quite fortunate in the sense that where I work, I'm not just, you know, in the marketing department, by myself, but I'm sitting with the founder every day. We're discussing all sorts of things about the business. And you have to make sure that you are in that kind of space in order to become a truly well-rounded marketer. But if you don't do that, you don't take risks, you don't learn what everyone else is doing and then applying those lessons.
I think
I
the
don't
key
think that you're
message
going to become a very good
is
marketer.
jump, right? Act, do it,
Jump.
start, make
Yeah.
that first
Yeah.
choice and actually start, which is very
Mm.
important. I really like another question that came up as well, and that's a lot of your attributes seem to be natural, your tenacity, your humor, your creativity. But what is one thing that you really needed to work on? So I'm gonna warn you, we have a bunch of questions coming through, so let's try and get through as many as possible. So what is the one thing that Khaya really needed to work on that didn't come naturally?
I'd say that what probably I had to work on that I'd say it doesn't really come naturally for me is probably numbers. And when I say it's numbers, it's I know I can understand it when it comes to marketing and anything. So as a creative, I also hate it when people would try and talk to me about research because I was making ads and I was a creative. I was like, why are you telling me about this? And then I realized that if you look at the research and you understand it and look at the numbers and understand the reason behind the numbers, then you'll be able to create even better work. And so when I say you've got to understand the reason behind the numbers is not, and a lot of research, I'll give you an example. So when I worked for example, at Coca-Cola, I went to ask a research agency and I said to them, do me a favor, I need you to do a study for me in this study, I want you to look at all the advertising in South Africa across the different sectors and tell me what kind of advertising works and what doesn't, what works and what it doesn't work. Anyway, there was an ad. We found that Black people don't like ads that have animals in them. It was just, you could just see, like the numbers were irrefutable. You couldn't deny what you saw. And then a few months later, my agency comes back and presents an idea with an animal in it. And so, but the numbers say, you shouldn't have an animal in the ad. But then I realized, okay, I can see what the numbers are saying. I can understand it. But what does the human element actually say? And I was like, well, if I look at the ad, the dog is doing what a dog in a township would do. It's outside, it's not sleeping in the bed, it's not licking someone, it's doing what a normal dog would do every day. It's outside. And except that this dog can read, just a picture.
Yeah.
And so, and then, so what I learned in that, for me, the thing that what I couldn't, was hating numbers, but I realized that in order for me to make the numbers work for me and the research work for place of understanding. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does make sense. So there's quite a few questions coming in as well. Sorry to cut you off there. There's one question that's coming from more than one person. And that's, I think it's probably because we all have stories, right? We have experiences that we want to share. And we think we can write, and we probably want to. But what inspired you to actually start writing?
And I think for me, when I was in school, I wrote, I remember I was asked to, we're writing an essay, and I wrote this random essay. And this particular essay was about describing an implosion. So they made us watch a building that was imploding, and then we had to write about this building and describe it. And I got very high marks, and I was kind of shocked by the high mark that I got around it. And I really fell in love with writing as a result. But above falling in love with writing, I fell in love with reading. So I read a lot as a result. And I think if you want to write, if you want to be a writer, you need to read a lot. You can't be a writer without reading a lot.
It makes complete sense.
But you should also, so you have to tell, but you should also be someone who knows how to tell a story and how knows how to engage people when you tell the story. And in terms of writing and telling stories, for me, it's not just about the information. It's how people, when they are telling the story, I'm hoping you can still hear me.
We've lost your video, but that's okay. Perhaps it's better if we just keep the video off so we can at least hear.
It's not about showing off how well you can write. And okay. All right. And so, I don't know if they can hear me.
I can still hear you. So I think I got the gist of it
in
terms of finding inspiration and making sure that you are reading as well in order to be inspired before you journey on the writing and understanding the why, I guess. Why am I doing this, and what am I hoping to get out of it, or even give it as a writer?
Also, so this was the last part. I was going to say that don't show off how well you can write. It's about what can people feel when I'm writing.
Wow.
So a lot of people want to show off, like I know good English, that I know big words, and I know exactly where to put a comma. People don't fall in love with where, you place your comma, or fall in love with big English words. It's how you feel.
They want to connect.
They want to connect.
Yes, they want to connect. Very interesting perspective. And another question that I want to ask you, which is a bit different from the other questions, and that's why it's jumping out at me. Khaya, what are your daily practices that protect your mindset and optimism? So,
Okay.
So a lot of people are loving your energy and they're loving your optimism. So what are some of the things that you do on a daily in order to protect that?
That's a very good question. I'd say I talk a lot to my friends, and my friends are very optimistic and positive kind of people. So I feed off them, and I think they also feed off the energy that I have. And also I have been I'm relatively spiritual, if you will. And And I'll give you an example. I remember when, when I was homeless for quite a long time, there's a Bible that I'd stolen, and there was, I did steal the Bible. And then I had this, and there was this, and
Thou
there
shalt
was,
not
and
judge.
so I had this, and there was this verse in the Bible that, and I was homeless, and I was like, oh my word, what's going to happen to me? And there was this verse in the Bible that, I used to recite, and I fell, and I used to recite it every day. And it's something that lives with me like throughout now. And so it's James 1, I can still kind of remember it even to this day, like, off by heart, which is, consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Perseverance must finish its work so that it may be mature and complete and lack nothing. If any of you lacks anything, he should ask God, who gives freely to all and without finding fault. And I remember reading that, and I was like, wow, so if I go through something, a trial, I should consider it pure joy because I am supposed to persevere. And what perseverance gives me, it gives me the ability to do things. And not only does it do that, it means that I will lack nothing eventually. So if I don't want to lack anything, I should embrace what I'm going through because it's teaching me perseverance, and it increases my faith, and therefore at some point I will lack nothing as a result. And I think for me that is what really kind of it's a constant kind of reminder in my mind, and I think that's what always the one thing. And another kind of a suffering verse in the Bible that kind of worked for me was how it was about Job. He'd lost everything in the book of Job. He's lost everything. And then the last servant comes to him and says, okay, the last servant says, okay, now all the children are dead. It's like, oh my goodness, I've lost everything and all my kids now are all gone. And then he throws himself to the ground. And then he says, naked I came, naked I shall depart. May the name of the Lord be praised. And then I was like, how would you say something like that after all this happened? And then I realized that actually we're not owed anything. But what we have to do is that we've got to make do with what we have. And anything else that happens and anything else that we do and we achieve is a bonus. And my life's mission and my life's goal is to ensure that I keep increasing these bonus points because I am not owed anything. I came naked.
Amazing.
And everything else that I experience is a bonus. So for me, that's how I keep my mind.
I really like the part about when you face triumph, not if. So when you face triumph, when those challenges come, because they will come inevitably in different forms. One thing I also want to ask, which is from the comment section is, and I know because I've also been wondering, Khaya, do you ever feel low? You seem like your spirits are always high. Do you get down? I mean, do you actually start feeling like, okay, now I'm not the usual Khaya hyper self and I'm feeling low? Does that happen to you? And if so, how do you?
It happens, but it happens, but it doesn't. And I think maybe the great, I'm grateful for, whether it's a personality thing, I don't know what it is, but I don't get down for long. So I will. Because I always think about the fact that, I survived being homeless, so I should be okay. If anything happens, I'll be fine. And then I also think about, because I remember I had a job where I did not really particularly have a great time working at that company. And I was not feeling great, and my confidence was low. And I thought, I don't know if, I'm cut out for this. And, I was questioning myself, questioning my ability and my confidence. But the thing is, it only affected the work, but it did not affect all aspects of my life. And I think that's also the important thing, is to make sure that if something happens in your life, make sure that it doesn't poison everything else about your life experience. And I think for me, maybe I have the fortune where I'm able sometimes maybe to compartmentalize certain things. It's like, well, something is going wrong there, but doesn't have to poison everything else. And a lot of the time, people might not be able to do that, where they will just, all they can do is like, if it goes bad there, it means all my life is screwed up because something went bad there. But that's not true.
Makes total sense. So, guys, it's almost 2 o'clock. It's just after 2. So we're going to continue a bit over to make up for the time that we lost because of connectivity issues in the beginning. Khaya saying yes, he's nodding. So that's great. We're going to continue for you guys. For those who have to leave, I'm so sorry, but you will definitely catch the recording and the conversation. We will make sure that it is available for you to listen in and join in the conversation. Interesting question here in the comment section, and it says, Khaya, fourth industrial revolution is here. The world is taking it another direction. What are some of the things that we can do as Black professionals in order to stay relevant in this time?
I'd say the number one thing is don't buy into the slogan. And I think for people, it's like fourth industrial revolution, it's a slogan, right? And I almost feel like it's so overwhelming for people that they actually don't even know what it means. You hear this and that, and it's like the only way you can do is like invest in knowledge and technology, understanding where the world is going, and find a way to be there first and be one of the first people to do it. The best thing, like for anyone who's trying to take advantage of new technology, is, well, if you're not the first one to do it, find someone who's doing it and find a better way to do the thing that you're doing.
Wow.
One of my favorite quotes was Michael Jackson. He said, so this is Michael Jackson after he has been, he's reinvented concerts. He has created the whole art of music videos. Biggest selling artist of all time. He's achieved everything he can possibly achieve. The person then asks Michael Jackson, and he says, knowing what you know now, it says, what would you tell someone who's trying to get into the music industry? What would you tell them, someone who's getting into the music industry? So think about the question. It's someone who's trying to get into it. So this was Michael Jackson's response. He was like, believe in yourself, study the greats, become greater, be a scientist, dissect. And so what I got out from that was like, why are you getting into this field you're getting into if you're not going to be studying the people who did it better than anybody else? So why get into this field if you don't want to be the best in it? So why are you getting into this field if you're not going to be a student of what you study, what you're doing, and dissect every single element of it? So I think that for Black professionals, if you want to take advantage of the fourth industrial revolution, as you're saying, is that you've got to, if you want to invent the best self-driving car ever, go and study what self-driving cars are doing. Is that going to be the biggest industry in the future? So study that and try and make that and be on the forefront of that. And if you want to be in the forefront of something, it often means that you don't have someone to learn from. You are the one who is driving the change. And don't be afraid of being there and making those mistakes. The faster you make mistakes, the quicker you can correct them. So don't be afraid of making mistakes. Yeah.
I like that. And it's also study the people who have done it, not to do exactly what they do in the way that they do it, but to do it better. I think that's very inspiring. That is very inspiring. On that note, Khaya, have you ever felt imposter syndrome in your career? If yes, how did you overcome this?
I don't think I've ever overcome it, and I don't know if I ever will. But I think the important thing about the imposter syndrome, for me, the imposter syndrome comes from the fact that I know that I have not, I still haven't completed my studies, and I never finished. I never studied to be a writer, and yet my books are successful. And I felt guilty, for example, when my books became pretty successful compared to people who studied writing and, then they do it every day, because I felt I didn't have the right to call myself a writer. And the only time I was like, okay, maybe I can be called a writer and an author was when my book was shortlisted for an Alan Payton Prize. I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'm a writer now. So I needed that validation. And I think for me, I constantly in my career, I constantly need that validation to get over that imposter syndrome. So, and that validation is through recognition of the work that I have done. And I think imposter syndrome, if you feel it, it should not be something that paralyzes you. It should be something that really drives you to keep working and doing better all the time. So for me, I've taken in this, I'm embracing it. I'm like, okay, I know I've got it, but let me use it positively. And that's what I'm going to do.
I love this. So we're bringing you stories from successful business leaders. And this leader is actually saying, I'm a work in progress. So it's not that I'm over certain things or I've accomplished it all, but I'm also still trying to learn and improve as an individual. So while I wait for you guys to start packing more questions, it seems like everybody's enjoying the conversation, which is great. While I wait for you guys to add on to the questions, I'm going to ask a very light one of my own. So Khaya, rumor has it that you used to reward yourself with a magnum whenever you achieved something. So my question to you is, what does the CMO of Rain reward himself with these days?
Wow, that is what do I reward my? Oh, do what I do now is interesting. There is so I've just started this plant-based diet, and I found there's this burger that I found in this restaurant. It is possibly the best burger in the country. It's better than any burger with meat. So I probably like almost every day now. This is how I reward myself. It's amazing. It is so amazing. That's how I reward myself now.
So Costa Man rewards himself with a plant-based burger. There you have it from Khaya Dlanga. From the one and only. Okay, and there was a question in the comments as well, which was, and this was going to be a question that I asked when we close, but it's a very relevant one, and that is, where to from now for Khaya? What is next, and what's driving you to be better, and what do you actually want to do next?
It's a very difficult question to answer. We'll say what's next, because I don't believe that I think there are people who are very good at planning their lives, and this is why I see myself in 2 years and 5 years, and that's what I'll do. I've never really been that kind of person. So I think mine has always been like a general idea, which is I knew, for example, that I wanted to be a successful marketer, and it would be great for me to be like a CMO of. Interesting, because actually before I became CMO, I was really having this, I was working at this company where I felt I was not doing well, I was not performing well. But I said I'd love to be a CMO in 2 years, of a technology company, either in a bank or a telco. And then preferably a telco that is doing different things, something very innovative. And then out of the blue, like this telco came through and I was like, perfect, I'll snap it up. But I think for me, what I really like to do is I want to be able to contribute to a positive progress of South Africans, and for South Africans to really see themselves as people who can break boundaries and can do things differently and lead the world, do things that people think South Africans and Africans cannot do. And if I'm fortunate to working for the company that I work for, is because number one, no other company in the world is doing what we're doing. Like in the entire planet, a data-only mobile company. We are learning as we're going. We are teaching ourselves, and we can't learn from anybody. And I think that and for me, that's what excites me, is that a group of South Africans doing something that no one else is doing. And if we believe in ourselves as South Africans, and that's what I want people to believe, that we don't have to go and look at someone else in America or Europe and China and say, okay, they're doing it, let's do the same thing. What is the perfect solution for where we are? And then maybe the world can embrace it. The thing that, for me, I don't have an answer, but my answer is for us to believe that we can do amazing things and not to think we have to follow all the time.
And also, I think as Velocity Club, we really believe in partnering with people and sort of tapping into other people's personal stories and learning from them, not only from leading business leaders, but other professionals as well through conversation. So have you had any influential people in your life that you believe, having this person in my life to guide and to sort of soundboard my thoughts has really been amazing, and it's had a huge impact in my life. And who are some of those people? I know I saw someone in the comment section ask as well if you have a specific mentor that you look up to.
So I had a mentor, and when I worked at Coke, and she's the only person who's I've ever asked, to be a mentor, and she mentored me. But what I actually found about mentorship is that you don't necessarily have someone who is mentoring you, but it's someone you can talk to and debate higher level concepts and higher level ideas about progressing your life, progressing yourself as a person. And it could be friends. I actually have friends like that. And I remember there's an interview where Anele was talking.
You have great friends. We know.
Yeah, very good friend of mine. So Anele said, she was talking about, I think someone hadn't done something they were supposed to do. And then a friend of ours then sends a message to the group and says, we just don't do that here. And so as a group of friends, we're accountable to each other. And I think the people you learn the most from are the people you spend the most time with.
Wow.
They are the people who you communicate with the most, because your mindset is often driven by what the things they do and the things they say and the outcome and the result of the things that they do. And for me, those are literally the less, and they are, and they're older people like in big corporations who I look up to and I have great conversations with. But it's not a matter of like they're mentoring me. It's me observing their character and what makes them really successful. And I try to emulate that in order for myself to also be successful.
Definitely. I think a lot of comments are about the fact that they find your story very inspiring. They find your conversation really authentic in the way that you tell stories and inspire, which is great, because that's what we wanted to do. Inspire through authentic stories that are true, and walk your journey as Khaya and learn some of the things that you've picked up on the way as well. Guys, we're going to close now. Thank you so much for bearing with us, especially with the network issues. But you've really stuck strong and enjoyed the conversation and engaged with us as well. So thank you for that. Please look out for the next conversations with other inspiring business leaders who will be walking us through their journeys, and we'll be tapping into their minds and trying to find what makes us successful, what can we do better, and like Khaya said, what can we learn and what can we constantly do to develop. If you want to find out more about Velocity Club, you can visit our website at velocityclub.co.za and leave your details, and we'll be sure to get in touch. Thank you very much.